Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome to our 29th lecture of MTH 108 Business Math 1. Today we will continue with our chapter 13, which is about Introduction to Probability Theory. Let us have a quick review what we have done so far in this chapter. We have studied the sets, some examples of sets, the elements of sets and the representation of sets in two ways. The notations for the set, for the element and the number of elements of a set. Some special types of sets, namely the universal set, complement, null set and the subset. Then we have also seen these special sets with the help of the Venn diagram. We have also studied the set operations, that is the operations of union of two sets, intersection of two sets and the equality of two sets, and the properties of set operations. Then we have studied the number of elements of a set, that is how we can define the number of elements of a set when we are taking the union of sets. The counting method with the help of the tree diagram and the fundamental principle of counting. Using this fundamental principle, we have defined the permutation and the permutation counting rule. Then we have studied the factorial notation or the factorial formula for the permutation method and the combination method and the factorial formula for the combination method, which we have obtained by using the relationship between the permutation and the combination. And we have observed that whenever there is a situation of finding the possible outcomes when the arrangement matters, we will use the permutation, and whenever we are asked to find the possible outcomes when the arrangement or the order does not matter, we will use the combination. Then in our last lecture of this chapter, we have studied about the random experiment, the possible outcomes, and the set of possible outcomes is known as the sample space, the trial and the sample point of a sample space, the finite sample space and an infinite sample space, and some examples related to it. Then we have defined event, which is a subset of our sample space, and some examples that how we can define our event. Event can be defined in a descriptive form, or given any form of the event, how we can identify the possible outcomes from our sample space. Then the number of events which are possible from a given sample space, which is nothing but 2 to the power n, where n is the number of sample points in a sample space. Then if an event contains only one element, we say that it is a simple event, and if it contains more than one element, we say that it is a compound event. The case of certain event, that is if the event is the whole sample space, and the case of impossible event, that is if the event is an empty set. Then we have seen some examples from which we can determine the size of a sample space, that is how many sample points belong to our sample space. Then the set operations and the properties of events. And one important property is that when given two events, when they are called mutually exclusive and when they are called collectively exhaustive. Today we will study about the probability theory using all the terms and notations which we have studied so far. So all these three lectures were the preparation to understand the probability of an event. Okay. We start with the introduction. In our last lecture, we have seen that although we know the possible outcomes of a random experiment, but we cannot predict with certainty what outcome will occur. For example, if we consider the case of flipping a coin once, then if the experiment is performed many times, and we assume that each outcome has the same chance of occurring, then approximately half of the outcomes will be heads and half tails. In this simple experiment of flipping a coin once, we know the set of possible outcomes, but we cannot say with certainty that which outcome will occur, that is we will obtain a head or we will obtain a tail. But if we continue our experiment, that is in the case of long run experiment, or we perform our experiment many times with the condition that each outcome has the same chance of occurring, which means that our coin is fair, it is not tilted, then we say that approximately half of the outcomes by performing an experiment many times will be the heads and half of the outcomes will be the tail. So in this way, what we have seen, that we have concluded, or we get an idea of what will be the possibility of occurring a head if we perform our experiment many times, and what will be the possibility of occurring a tail if we perform our experiment many times. Okay, we consider one more example, the simplest one again, of rolling a die once. Then we know that the usual sample space consists of 6 sample points, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Again we assume the same thing which we have considered in the case of flipping a coin, that each outcome has the same chance of occurring, which means that the outcomes are equally likely. Either we say that each outcome has the same chance of occurring, or we say that the outcomes are equally likely. This does not mean that in 6 tosses each number must turn up once. Rather, it means that if the experiment were performed a large number of times, each outcome would occur about 1/6 of the time. For the sake of simplicity, we consider the simple event 1, that is, we are interested in knowing that if we perform our experiment many times, then what will be the possibility we obtain the outcome 1, that is, the die turned up with the face 1. So if the experiment is performed n times and 1 occurs in k of the trials, then the proportion of times that 1 occurs is k over n. That is the number of trials in which our event occurred divided by the total number of trials, or the total number of times the experiment has been performed. We define this type of proportion as the relative frequency. These values, this ratio k over n or 1/6, for example, if we roll a die once and we say that our die is well balanced, that is, it is not biased, and we say that each outcome has the same chance to occur, which means that if we are interested in knowing what is the possibility of occurring 1 when we have rolled our die once, then the total number of outcomes will be 6, and the possibility is that the simple event 1 will occur 1/6 of the time. Now these values k over n or 1/6, they reflect the expectation of the relative frequency of an event. The relative frequency of an event is the proportion of the time that the event occurs, computed by dividing the number of times k the event occurs by the number of times n the experiment is conducted. And with the help of this relative frequency, we can define our term probability, which is, that is, we are considering the simple event only, that is, event containing only one sample point. So the probability of an event can be thought of as the relative frequency k over n of the event over the long run. And we describe what do we mean by this definition of probability, that it is the ratio of the number of times that event occurred divided by the total number of times the experiment is conducted. If S is our equiprobable space, whereby equiprobable space we mean that all the simple events are equally likely to occur, that is, every outcome has an equal chance to occur, and our sample space has n sample points, capital N sample points, S1, S2, S3 and so on up to Sn sample points, then the probability of the simple event Si is given by P of Si is equals to 1 over n for I varying from 1, 2 and so on up to capital N. Okay, what do we mean by this definition? We have a sample space with capital N sample points and we assume that each outcome has the equal chance to occur. Let's say the sample points are denoted by S1, S2, S3 and so on up to Sn, and we are interested in knowing the probability of our simple event Si, where I can be any value from 1 to capital N. Then the probability of the simple event will be given by P of Si, which is equals to 1, since the probability of this event to occur is 1, divided by the total number of sample points. And the probability of a simple event or any event, simple or compound, is denoted by this capital P. That is, by performing the experiment n times, the chance that which this sample point will occur is 1. So the possible outcomes is 1 divided by the total number of sample points. As in the case of rolling a die, we obtain our sample space containing 6 sample points. Then the number 1 over 6 is taken to be the probability of getting a 1 on the roll of a well-balanced die. That is, the probability to occur 1 when we roll a die is equals to 1 by 6. That is the probability or the possibility that the outcome 1 will occur divided by the total number of sample points of our sample space, which is capital N, and in the case of rolling a die is 6. So the probability that 1 will occur is equals to 1 by 6. Similarly, the probability that 2 will occur when we roll a die is again 1 by 6, because our die is well balanced and we are assuming that each possible outcome has the equal chance to occur. So 2 can be obtained only one time. So the number divided by the total number of the sample space. Similarly, the probability that 3 will occur will be equals to 1 by 6 and so on, which means that every element of the sample space in case of rolling a die has the probability of 1 by 6. Now we determine the probability of compound events, that is the events which have more than one sample point. We consider the example of rolling a well-balanced die and the compound event having 2 sample points or outcomes 1 and 2. Then if the trials are large and if the number of trials is n, which is large enough, then the probability that 1 will occur will be equals to 1 by 6, just as the case of simple probability of the simple event, and the probability that 2 will occur is also 1 by 6. We have just seen it in the previous slide. Then a 1 or 2 should turn up approximately, that is 1 by 6 plus 1 by 6. What are the outcomes of our event E? That is, either we obtain a 1 or we obtain a 2. So a 1 comes which is equals to 1 by 6, or a 2 comes which is equals to again 1 by 6. Adding the probability of these simple events, we obtain that a 1 comes or a 2 comes is the probability of the event is 2 by 6. In other words, the probability of this event is equals to 2 by 6, which can be defined in 2 ways. If we look at this term 1 by 6 plus 1 by 6, which means that we are adding the probabilities of the simple events that form our event E. That is, the probability that 1 will occur is 1 by 6. The probability that 2 will occur is 1 by 6. And we are simply adding the probabilities of the simple events from the sample points of E. And we obtain the probability of the whole event, of the whole compound event. The other way to look at it is that ratio of the number of sample points in our event E to the number of sample points in our sample space S. Now, if we recall that our sample space has 6 sample points, then the probability of this compound event E will be the ratio, that is, the probability of this compound event E will be the ratio of the number of sample points in our event E to the number of sample points in our sample space S. Now, the event E contains 2 sample points, 2, and sample space contains 6 sample points, so the probability of our compound event is 2 by 6. And now we define this thing for the general event, that is, when an event has n sample points. Suppose we have an equiprobable space, sample space S, which means that all the outcomes have the equal chance to occur for an experiment, and our event E contains sample points S1, S2 up to Sj. Suppose this is our event E, then the probability of this event E, denoted by capital P of E, is given as, which is given as the sum of the probabilities of all the sample points of E, that is, the probability of the element or sample point S1 plus the probability of the sample point S2 and so on up to probability of the sample point Sj, which is equals to the number of sample points in our event E divided by the total number of, divided by the size of our sample space, where NE is the number of outcomes in E, in our event E, and NS is the number of outcomes in our sample space S. So, given a compound event, we can easily calculate the probability of that event, and from this formula, that probability of E is equals to the ratio of the number of outcomes in E to the number of outcomes in S, can be used for any type of event, that is, our event is compound event or a simple event. For example, if we consider our event E as occurring 1 only, this is a simple event, so the probability of this event we have calculated as 1 by 6, and by looking at this formula, the number of outcomes in event E is 1 divided by the number of outcomes in our sample space, which is 6. So this formula basically gives us the probability of any event, no matter our event is a simple event or a compound event. We can interpret probability of an event as the relative frequency of the event E occurring in the long run. Thus, in K trials, we would expect the event E to occur approximately K into probability of E times, provided K is large. That is, if we know the probability of an event E and we are performing the K trials, then in K trials the probability will be nothing but the number of the trials which we are performing into the probability of the event. We consider few more examples to understand clearly what do we mean by the probability of an event. Suppose two coins are tossed and we are asked to determine the probability of first event, that is when two heads occur, and the second event, that is at least one head occur. Two coins are tossed, so our sample space will be head head, head tail, tail head and tail tail. So this will be our usual sample space when we toss two coins, and we can also obtain the sample space with the help of our tree diagram. Okay, now our first event A, we call this event E, as this says that two heads occur, exactly two heads, which means that this event contains the sample point head head. Okay, if we call this the second event F as, then this event contains those sample points which satisfy the condition that at least one head occur, which means that this will contain the sample points head head. At least one means the second outcome is also allowed and the third outcome is also allowed. So these are the sample points of our events E and F, and we have to find the probability of our event when two heads occur. So the probability of E will be calculated by the formula, that is the number of elements in our event E divided by the number of elements in our sample space S, which is equals to 1/4. And this is the example of a simple event, and we have calculated the probability of the simple event also by using our formula. Now to find the probability of our event F, either we can use the formula or we can add up the probabilities of the simple events, that is the probability when head head occurs plus the probability when head tail occurs plus the probability when tail head occurs, and this is equals to the probability when head head occurs is 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, which is 3/4. And by using the formula, that is by using the number of elements only, the event F has 3 elements and the sample space has 4 sample points, so the event F has probability 3/4. We consider one more example. The example says that we are considering the college admission case given by this following table, that is with respect to the sex and with respect to the subject. It is the same example which we have discussed in our previous lecture, that is we have the subjects as business, law and engineering, and we are considering the college admission for the first year of college, and we say that 350 male students will study business, 300 male students will study law and 100 male students will study engineering. And the case of for female students, 250 of them will study business, 750 will study law and 150 will study engineering. And now the total on the both of the sides. Total here and total here. So total number of male students is 750. Total number of female students is also 750. So total number of students is 1500. Total number of students studying business is 600. Total number of students studying law is 750, and total number of, this is only 50, and we obtain the sum as 150. So we are provided this information, that is we know the number of students with respect to the subject and with respect to their sex. If we select one student randomly, then the probability that, where if we define our event M as the set of male students, that is the male student studying business, male student studying law, male student studying engineering. Similarly, our event F as the female student studying business, female student studying law, and the female student studying engineering. Similarly, we can define our events with respect to the subjects, that is B will represent the event, that is when the male student studying business and the female student studying business, and the event L and E respectively. And we are asked to find the probability of the event M, that is the probability of the male students. Now, the probability of the male students can be calculated by adding the probabilities of these simple events, that is the probability of the male student studying business plus the probability of the male student studying law plus the probability of the male student studying engineering. Or we can find by using the formula, that is the number of male students divided by the size of our sample space. So the number of total male students is 750 and the size of our sample space is 1500. So the probability of the male student selected randomly is 1/2. Okay, the probability of an engineering student selected randomly will be equals to the probability of the male student studying engineering plus the probability of the female student studying engineering, which is equals to the total number of students studying engineering divided by the size of our sample space, which is equals to 150 divided by 1500, which is 1/10. So the probability that we select an engineering student randomly is 1/10. Probability of an event FB, that is a female student studying business, will be equals to the number of female students studying business divided by the total number of students, will be equals to 0.167. So this is how we calculate the probabilities of different events, no matter our event is a simple event or a compound event, simply by using the formula, that is the total number, that is the size of the event divided by the total number or the size of our sample space. One more example. From a committee of 3 males and 4 females, a subcommittee of 4 is to be randomly selected. Find the probability that it consists of 2 males and 2 females. Okay, so we have to find the probability of our event E, which has 2 males and 2 females. And we have to find the probability of this event E. Okay, now, so we are asked to find the probability of this event E. What will be the size of our sample space? Our space S contains 3 males and 4 females. Okay, this is our main space, and we are asked to find a subcommittee from this main space. That is, let's say if S1 is our new sample space with which we will work with, then the size of this sample space will be equals to, we are selecting our members for the subcommittee randomly, which means that order does not matter here, or the arrangement does not matter. The only matters is the number of possible combinations which we may select. So the number or the size of our sample space will be determined by using the combination, that is 7C4. 7 is the size of our original sample space and 4 is the size of our, which will be found by using the factorial formula for the combination, that is n factorial divided by r factorial into n minus r factorial. which is 7 into 6 into 5 factorial divided by 4 factorial into 3 factorial, and simplifying we obtained 35. So this is the size of our required sample space, and we will not consider the size of this sample space because this was the size of the committee and we have to deal with the subcommittee. So we have to find the size or the possible outcomes which we can select it randomly from the given original space. So these are the possible outcomes, which tells us that the 2 males and 2 females can be selected randomly from a committee of 3 males and 4 females. Okay, now the size of our event E. The size of our event E will be calculated again by using the combination and the basic counting principle. That is, what is the possibility of obtaining 2 males from 3 males? The possibility, and we are selecting our members randomly, which means that order does not matter. So the possibility of selecting 2 males from the 3 males is 3C2, and the possibility of selecting 2 females from the given 4 females is 4C2. So the size of our event will be the product of these 2 combinations. 3C2 is 3 factorial over 2 factorial into 1 factorial, and 4C2 is 4 factorial divided by 2 factorial into 2 factorial, and simplifying we obtained 3 into 6, which is equals to 18. And now we know all the required information, so we can easily find the probability of this event, that the subcommittee has 2 males and 2 females selected randomly, is nothing but the ratio of the size of the event to the size of our sample space, which is 18 by 35. Where n of S1, the size of S1, tells us the possible combinations in which we can select our 2 males and 2 females from our given space of 7 elements. So this is how we use the rules of combination or sometimes permutation to obtain the probability of some particular event. Now we look at some properties of the probability, but before the properties we have 2 types of probabilities. One is the objective probability and second is the subjective probability. They are also known as theoretical probability and empirical probability. Objective probability is one in which is based upon the historical experience or the general knowledge. For example, flipping a coin, rolling a die. When we flip a coin, we know our historical experience or the general knowledge that the probability that a head will occur is 1 by 2, or the probability that a tail will occur is 1 by 2. And same is the case when we roll a die. That is, the probability that 3 will occur is 1 by 6. So objective probability is one in which we use our historical previous knowledge or the historical experience, or we perform an actual experiment and keeping a record of the relative frequency, and we come to know that what will be the probability of that particular event. Contrary to this objective probability, the second type is the subjective probability. These probabilities are assigned in the absence of wide historical experience and are based upon personal experiences and intuition. That is, what we feel or think about about the possibility of that particular outcome. For example, if you receive an A grade in this course, then this probability, for example, you think you are good enough that you will get an A grade in this course, then this is the probability that you are obtaining 90% marks, which means that this reflects your personal intuition. How? that your personal judgment about your aptitude towards this course, the level of difficulty of this course, the assessment of the instructor, the assessment of the evaluation performance, and the type of evaluation. Keeping all these things in mind, all these facts in mind, you decide that you will receive an A grade in this course. So these type of probabilities are known as subjective probabilities. And now we look at some very simple and basic properties of the probability. The first one is that the probability of an event E is a number between 0 and 1 inclusive. That is, if we have an event capital E, then the probability of this event lies between 0 and 1, and the probability can be equals to 0 of that particular event or can be equals to 1 of that particular event. How we obtain this? Just a quick look. Since we know that the number of elements or the size of an event is always less than equals to the size of our sample space, and the size can be equals to 0 or greater than 0, then dividing both sides by the size of the sample space, we obtain this, and the term in between is the probability of that particular event. So the probability of any event is a number between 0 and 1, and the probability can be equals to 0, can be equals to 1. For example, if we consider the case of certain event in which the event is the whole sample space, then the probability of that event will be equals to 1. Or if we consider an impossible event, that is the event which is a null set, then the probability of that event is 0. So what we are saying is that in the case of certain event, the probability of our sample space is 1. In the case of impossible event, the probability of an empty set is 0. And the sum of probabilities of all the outcomes, that is of all the simple events, is always 1. For example, consider the example of flipping a coin. Then the probability that head will occur, denoted by the event E, is 1 by 2, and the probability that the tail will occur is denoted by the event F, is 1 by 2. And summing all these probabilities, these are the possible events which can be obtained from this sample space. Summing all these probabilities, we obtain the answer 1. That is, the sum of the probabilities of all the events is always equals to 1. If we are given an event E, then the probability that an event will not occur, that is, event will not occur means we are interested in finding the probability of the complement of the event. So the probability that the event will not occur will be denoted by P of E complement, and it is nothing but 1 minus the probability that the event will occur. Or in other words, the probability that the event will occur is equals to 1 minus the probability that the event will not occur. And the case of flipping a coin also fits here. That is, the probability that we will obtain a head is 1 by 2. Can also be calculated by knowing the probability of the complement, that is the probability that the head will not occur, means we will obtain a tail which is 1 by 2, and 1 minus 1 by 2 is 1 by 2. Now we want to know that we are given two events E and F, then what will be the probability that at least one of the event occur? At least one of the event occur, that is, what is the probability of the union of these two events? And if you recall from our previous lecture, we have said that the union of two events means that at least one of the event will occur, and the intersection of two events means that both of them should occur. So the probability that at least one of the event occur is nothing but finding the probability of the union of these two events, and this probability is calculated by using the same formula, that is the size of the union of the events divided by size of our sample space. And in our previous lecture we have seen that what will be the size when we take the union of two events. The size is nothing but the number of sample points in our event E plus the number of sample points in our event F minus the number of points in their intersection, that is just to avoid the repetition of our points, divided by the total number of sample points. And this is nothing but n of E over n of S plus the size of F over the size of the sample space minus the size of the intersection divided by size of the sample space. And this is the probability of the event E plus the probability of the event F minus the probability that both the event occur at the same time, that is the probability of the intersection of events. For example, consider the case of rolling a die. And we consider two events from the example of our previous lecture, that both are even, and our event H as, and the event H as sum is 4. Then this event contains 3 sample points, that is 1 3, 3 1 and 2 2. So the probability that at least one of the event will occur will be equals to the probability of the event E, which is equals to the ratio of the size of the event E divided by size of the sample space. Now this event E contains 18 sample points divided by the size of the sample space, which is 36, plus the probability of the event H, which is equals to the size of our event H divided by size of our sample space, minus the probability of their intersection. Do they have something in common? Yes. This sample point 2 2 also occur in E, which means that E intersection H is equals to our sample point 2 2. So the probability of this intersection, which is equals to 1 divided by 36, and we obtain 18 plus 3 minus 1 divided by 36, which is equals to 20 by 36. So the probability that at least one of the event H or E will occur is 20 by 36. In our last lecture we have also seen the type of events as the mutually exclusive events. That is when the events have nothing in common or their intersection is an empty set. Then in the case of mutually exclusive events, our formula will reduce to the probability of the event E plus the probability of the event F minus this term will be equals to 0. Why? Because the events E and F are mutually exclusive, that is their intersection is empty, and we know by the property of probability that the probability of an empty set is 0. So in case of mutually exclusive events, our formula reduces to the sum of the probabilities of the respective events. For example, we consider an event G from our previous lecture, that sum is equals to 2. Then this event contains only one sample point 1 1, and the intersection of these two events E and G is empty, that is these two events are mutually exclusive. So the probability of that at least one of the event will occur from the events E and G will be equals to probability of the event E, which is 18 by 36, plus the probability of the event G, which is 1 by 36. So the probability that at least the event G or E will occur is 19 by 36. For example, in the case of mutually exclusive events, the probability that an event E will occur, that at least the event E or its complement will occur, then since these two events are mutually exclusive, that is either the event will occur or its complement will occur, then in this case it is equals to the sum of the respective probabilities of the event and its complement. And since we know that E union E complement is nothing but our sample space from the properties of the union and events, and we know that whenever event E is the sample space, that is the certain event, in this case the probability is equals to 1. So in case of the probability that either the event will occur or its complement will occur is nothing but the sum of the respective probabilities, and it is equals to 1. Now we classify events as two types, that is the independent event or dependent event. First we study what do we mean by the independent events. Now two events are independent if the occurrence of or non-occurrence of one event in no ways affects the occurrence of the other event. That is, if one event occurs or does not occur, does not affect that the second event will occur or not occur. For example, flipping a coin. Then if we flip a coin and we obtain a head at first time and we flip our coin again, then obtaining a head at the first time does not affect that we will obtain a head or a tail at the second time. For example, drawing cards from a deck with replacement, drawing marbles from an urn with replacement, which means that when we have drawn one marble from an urn, we will put it back, and for the next time we can obtain any of the marble randomly. So these are the examples of independent events. And the simple probability of an event is often called as marginal probability. And the probability of the joint occurrence of two or more events is called the joint probability. So now we look at some examples which clear us that we are provided the independent events and how we can find their probabilities. Where by independent event we mean that if one event occurs or does not occur, it will not affect on the occurrence of the second event. The joint probability that two independent events E and F will occur together or in succession equals the product of the marginal probabilities of the events E and F. That is what we are trying to find, the probability that both the events occur, that is two independent events will occur together or in succession, equals the product of the marginal probabilities of the event E and the event F. For example, the probability that a machine will produce a defective part is 1 by 2. That is, either a machine will produce a defective part or it will produce an acceptable part. So the probability of producing a defective part is 1 by 2. If we wish to determine the probability that two consecutive parts are defective, then this is the case of an independent event, because if first part is produced defective, it will not affect on the production of the second part. The second part may be produced defective or may be produced acceptable. Regardless of the quality of the previous part, which I have just explained, then the probability of the event that two consecutive parts are defective will be if our event D represents the defective part is produced, and we are interested in finding the probabilities that a defective part at first stage is produced, and then at the second stage is also produced. That is, two consecutive parts are defective. That is, it is the example of independent events in succession. That is, first part produced defective and the second part produced defective, which means that this is equals to the probability that the first part is produced defective into the probability that the second part is produced defective. Now the probability in each case is 0.5, that is 1 by 2, which is equals to 0.25. So the probability that two consecutive parts are defective is nothing but the product of the probabilities of this simple events, that is the product of the marginal probabilities. And if we have n independent events, let's say we have events E1, E2 and so on up to En. If we have n independent events which occur together or in succession, then the probabilities of these events will be the product of their marginal probabilities. That is, the probabilities, the event E1 into the probabilities of the event E2 into the probabilities of the event En. Now we come to an important concept of probability, which is known as the conditional probability. We are given two independent events E and F. Then the conditional probability of the event E, given that the event F has occurred, is nothing but the marginal probability of our event E, or the probability of the event E given that the event F has occurred, written as the probability of E, this vertical line, such that the event F has occurred, is nothing but the marginal probability of the event E. For example, the probability of a head on a second toss of a coin, given that the first toss resulted in a head, is a conditional probability, and it is nothing but the marginal probability that we will obtain a head on a second toss is 1 by 2. The conditional probability of a 6 on the roll of a die, given that no 6 have occurred in the last 20 trials, is equals to the probability of obtaining a 6, which is equals to 1 by 6. Now this is the formula for defining the conditional probability when the events are independent. That is, event E and F are independent, and to find the probability of the event E, given that the event F has occurred, will not play any role in finding the probability of the event E, and we will simply find the marginal probability of the event E. Now we come to know what do we mean by the dependent events. Since it is clear from the name that two events are dependent if the probability of occurrence of one event is affected by the occurrence or non-occurrence of the other event. For example, if we draw cards from a deck without replacement, or if we draw marbles from an urn without replacement. Considering the example of drawing marbles from an urn, which we have seen in our last lecture, let's suppose we have 4 marbles in an urn, and we are asked to draw the marbles 2 times without replacement, which means that at the first time the possibilities to obtain any marble is 1 by 4. That is, we are given 4 marbles, we can pick any marble from the urn. But without replacement means that we will not put that marble back into the urn. So to draw the marble second time from an urn, we are left with 3 marbles, which means that the event that the first marble is drawn from the urn affects the probability of the second event. Similarly, if we are drawing cards from a deck without replacement, in a deck there are total 52 cards. If we have drawn 1 card from a deck at the first stage, and without replacement means this card is not allowed to put back in the deck, which means that for the second stage we are left with 51 possibilities. That is, the occurrence of the event that we have drawn any one card randomly from a deck has affected the occurrence of our next event. So these type of events are known as dependent events. And the conditional probability of these dependent events, given that we have two events E and F, and we are provided that the occurrence of the event F has affected the occurrence of the event E, then the conditional probability of event E given the occurrence of the event F is event E such that the event F has already occurred. The event already occurred will be written later, and this is equals to the probability that both the event occur divided by the probability that the event F has already occurred, provided the probability of the event F is different from 0. Similarly, the probability that of the event F given that event E has already occurred is nothing but the probability of their intersection divided by the probability of the event which has already occurred, provided that this probability is different from 0. So this is how we define the conditional probability of two dependent events. And now some examples to clear what do we mean by the conditional probability of the dependent events. Suppose we consider flipping a coin twice. So our sample space has 4 elements, that is, sample space has elements head, 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 tail, tail, head, and tail, tail. And we consider our event E1 as 2 heads only, so we will have this outcome head and head. Probability of the event E1 is equals to 1 by 4, that is the size of the event E1 divided by the size of our sample space. We consider event E2 having 2 outcomes, that is head, head, and tail, tail, described as the outcome was the same for both flips. So the outcome is the same for the both flips, which means that in both the flips we are obtaining either the head or the tail. So the event E2 has 2 outcomes, head, head, and tail, tail. Then how would you assess the probability that event E1 occurred given that E2 has already occurred? In this case, we have our original sample space S with the events head, head, tail, tail, head, tail, and tail, head. Now this is our event E. Okay, this is our event E1, this is our event E2, and this is our whole sample space. And we have to find the probability, conditional probability of 2 dependent events, the probability of the event E1 given that the event E2 has already occurred. So what we will do in this case, we will shift our sample space or reduce our sample space to this new sample space E2, that is, reduce the sample space S to our new sample space E2, and the size of this new sample space E2 is 2. Okay, now we can use the formula for calculating the conditional probability of dependent events, and we know that E2 has already occurred and the events are dependent, so this must have affect the probability that the event E1 will occur. So our sample space has been reduced to just by that assumption that our new sample space is our event E2. So the probability that the event E1 will occur given that the event E2 has already occurred is 1 out of 2. That is the probability of the intersection of the events, which is equals to 1, divided by the probability that the event E2 has already occurred, which is equals to 2. So the probability, conditional probability of the event E1 given that the event E2 has already occurred is 1 by 2. And how we have calculated it? But just by reducing our given sample space to the event E2. We consider one more example of flipping a coin twice and now with the different events. We know our given sample space S containing 4 sample points. We consider our event E1 as getting head on the first throw. So we have 2 possible outcomes, head and head tail. Event E2 is getting the same on both throws. So the possible outcomes in this event are head and tail. And we define our event E3 as head on the first throw and same on both throws. So the event E3 is nothing but the intersection of our events E1 and E2. So our event E3 is nothing but the intersection of our events E1 and E2. Okay. Then how we can find the probability of this joint event, that is what is happening that we are obtaining head on first throw and at the same time we are obtaining same on the both throws. So we know that the probability of the event E2 given that the event E1 has already occurred is nothing but the intersection of these 2 events divided by the probability of the event E1. Now the probability of the intersection can be obtained by rearranging the formula, that is the probability of E1 into the conditional probability of the event E2 given that the event E1 has already occurred, and the probability of event E1 is 1 by 2 and the probability of event, this conditional probability is also 1 by 2 which we have just calculated. So the probability that both the events will occur simultaneously can be calculated by using the formula of the conditional probability of dependent events, and we obtain our answer as 1 by 4. Or we can say that the probability of 2 dependent events E and F both occurring simultaneously is nothing but the probability of the event E into the conditional probability of event F provided that the event E has already occurred. So far we have seen the types of probabilities, that is the objective probability, the subjective probability, some properties of the probabilities, and we have calculated the probabilities of independent events, the conditional probability in that case, and the probability of the dependent events and the conditional probability in that case. We can also find the probabilities by using the probability tree, as we have calculated the number of possible outcomes by using our tree diagram. Suppose a box contains 3 blue and 2 white balls, and 2 balls are drawn in succession without replacement. So this is an example of a conditional probability. We are asked to find the probability of drawing a white ball on the second draw. Okay, first we define our events. Our event B1 is drawing a blue ball on the first draw. Our event W2 is of drawing the white ball on the second draw. Similarly, we can define our event B2, that is the blue ball on second draw, and W1 is the white ball on first draw. Okay, and we are asked to find the probability of this W2, that is obtaining the white ball on the second draw. So we can easily find this probability by using the formula of conditional probability of dependent events, that the probability that we will obtain a white ball on the first draw into the probability of the white ball obtaining on the second draw, provided that the white ball on the first draw already occurred, plus the probability of obtaining a blue ball on the first draw into the probability of obtaining the white ball on the second draw, provided that the blue ball has already occurred on the first draw. And the probability of obtaining a white ball on the first draw, since we have total 5 balls and on the first draw we are taking any ball randomly, so probability of obtaining a white ball on the first draw is 2 by 5, where 2 is the size of the event obtaining a white ball and 5 is the size of our sample space. Now the probability that we will obtain a white ball on the second draw, given that we already have a white ball on the first draw and the case is of without replacement, so we are total left with 4 balls and we already have 1 white ball taken out, so from total of 2 white balls we are left with 1 white ball. So this conditional probability is equals to 1 by 4. Now the probabilities of the sum. Probability of obtaining a blue ball on the first draw, we are given a total of 5 balls and we are selecting any ball randomly, so the total number of blue balls is 3, the size of the event B1 divided by the size of our sample space. The probability that we will obtain a white ball on the second draw, provided that we have obtained a blue ball on the first draw. The case of without replacement, so in total we are left with 4 balls and both the white balls are as it is in our box, which means that we can obtain any 2 of the white balls from the rest of the 4 balls. So this conditional probability is 2 by 4. And solving all these values, we obtain that the probability of obtaining a white ball in the second draw is 2 by 5. And how we find the probability of obtaining the white ball on our second draw? By using our probability tree, as we will use our probability tree which is, we start from here and the draw 1 is our stage 1 and the draw 2 is our stage 2. On the first stage we are in total given the 5 balls and either we will obtain a white ball or a blue ball. Okay, so the probability of obtaining a white ball at the first stage is 2 by 5, because in total we are given 5 balls and we are given 2 balls, so we can select any 2 balls from these white balls. The probability of obtaining a blue ball is 3 by 5. On the second stage we are left with 1 white ball, so either we will obtain a white ball or we will obtain a blue ball. So obtaining a white ball on the second stage is 1 by 4 and obtaining a blue ball on the second stage is 3 by 4. Okay, if we have obtained a blue ball on the first stage, then obtaining a white ball on the second stage and the blue ball on the second stage, for the white ball the probability will be equals to 2 by 4, which is equals to 1 by 2, and the probability of obtaining the blue ball again is 2 by 4, which is 1 by 2. So this gives us our basically the probability of obtaining a white ball on the first draw This gives us, basically this number gives us the probability of obtaining the white ball on the second row, given that on the first row we already have a white ball. Okay, and then we obtain the probability of white ball and on the first row and on the second row. So this is nothing but 2 by 5 into 1 by 4, which is equals to 1 by 10. Okay, the probability of obtaining a white ball and a blue ball is 2 by 5 into 3 by 4, which is 3 by 10. In this case, the probability will be the product of 3 by 5 into 2 by 4, which is 3 by 10, and in this case as well 3 by 10. So the probability of obtaining a white ball on the second row will be the probability of that both of this joint event, white ball on the first row and white ball on the second row, plus the probability obtaining white ball on the first row and the second ball, blue ball on the second row, is equals to 1 by 10 plus 3 by 10, which is equals to 4 by 10, which is equals to 2 by 5. So either we calculate this probability by using our probability tree or simply by using these formulas for the conditional probability. So with this we end our today's lecture. And what we have studied today? Today we have studied about the relative frequency, the probability in terms of relative frequency, the probability of a simple event and a compound event, two types of probabilities, namely the objective probability and the subjective probability, and some properties of probability. Then the probabilities in the case of events when they are independent and dependent, and the conditional probability in this case of events of independent case and the dependent case, the marginal probability and the joint probability, and the probability by using the probability trees. So with this we also end our chapter 13, and we have some practice questions from section 13.3 and section 13.4, and in our next lecture we will start our chapter 14, which is about probability distributions. Allah Hafiz, students.